Joining us in the WVLT newsroom, I'm Whitney Turner. Now, just yesterday, President Joe Biden signed an executive order to strengthen efforts to bring home American hostages and those wrongfully detained in other countries. Now, this issue reignited in the public's eye by WNBA basketball star Brittney Griner. Now, you probably have heard about this case. Brittney Griner still detained in a Russian prison after pleading guilty to drug charges. Now, her lawyers expect her trial to wrap up by the beginning of August. Now, you probably know Brittney Griner's case, but you may not know that a former Marine from Knoxville is currently being detained in Venezuela. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about his case right now. We have his story on WVLT.tv and in the WVLT News app. Now, according to the Associated Press, Matthew John Heath is a former Marine from Knoxville. Now, he's been detained in Venezuela since September of 2020. Now, according to that report, he's charged in connection to a terrorist plot to sabotage oil refineries and electrical service in order to stir unrest. That's the Venezuela's former chief prosecutor saying that on state television there. Now, Heath accused of having ties to the CIA. He's charged with terrorism, trafficking illegal weapons, and conspiracy. Now, again, he's been in Venezuela since September of 2020. His family is desperate to get him home. Now, yesterday's executive order signed by President Joe Biden, we have details about that in the WVLT News app as well. Now, this order is really aimed at increasing the flow of information to families who are detained abroad, of Americans who are detained abroad. And it will also impose sanctions on these criminals, terrorists, government officials, all who are holding these Americans captive. Now, it would also, this is important, add a classification to the state's Department Travel Advisory. This is important if you are planning on traveling abroad. It would add a new risk indicator. This would be marked as D for detention. It'll be applied to at least initially the following countries: Burma, China, Iran, North Korea, Russia, and Venezuela. Now, this will let people know if you are traveling abroad, making plans, you can see this notification and know that an American is wrongfully detained in that country. May change your plans if you are intending to go to a country and you learn that information. Just trying to increase this flow of information and give Americans who are here, who are traveling, a better idea of what they're going into if they do choose to travel abroad. So that is an important classification now. So in a few moments here, the Bring Our Families Home campaign is going to unveil a public mural. This is them getting set up right now. You can see it captures the faces of 18 American hostages and wrongfully detainees who are held abroad. Now, Brittney Griner's face is a part of this as well. So according to the James W. Foley Legacy Foundation, there are actually 64 publicly known cases of Americans who are being held abroad or wrongfully detained around the world. Now, that's just those people who we know of. There could be many other detainees that we do not know of. Families of these hostages and wrongful detainees hope to increase the attention and educate the public about hostage diplomacy and encourage the Biden administration to use every tool it has to bring these detainees home. I want to take you live now to that mural unveiling, and we'll bring up the audio and let you take a listen.
We can't be the live stream camera. You guys are in the way of the camera. That one is right there. I am sorry that we don't have more room. I can't block all the press.
Anything in front here is walking to right here.
Okay, families! Hello, families! Let's huddle up right here, families! Anybody else? Beth, do you mind just yelling at the people inside, families, and we're going to get started?
Family! Everett!
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 All right. So family members, let's just pay attention. I will call up the families that we have here. I will read the statement. We'll just kind of go from there, right? Speak for however long, and we'll. All right. Is everybody ready? And is anyone taking live? Great. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Tell me, live, are you ready? Okay. Good morning. Thank you for coming today. Today, the Bring Our Families Home campaign is unveiling a wheat paste mural featuring the faces of 18 Americans held hostage or wrongfully detained abroad. My name is Jonathan Franks. I was the consultant on the Trevor Reed case. I'm also the spokesperson for the Bring Our Families Home campaign. Before I begin, I'd like to read the names of those 18 Americans on the mural to my left here, starting at the M Street end and ending at the alley end. And after that, we will observe a 60-second moment of silence. Brittany Griner, held hostage in Russia. Imag Sharkey, wrongfully detained in Iran. Luke Denman, wrongfully detained in Venezuela. Hilario Zambrano, wrongfully detained in Venezuela. Murad Tabaz, wrongfully detained in Iran. Mark Swiden, wrongfully detained in China. Jose Angel Herrera, wrongfully detained in Venezuela. Siamak Namazi, wrongfully detained in Iran. Bakr Namazi, wrongfully detained in Iran. Jorge Toledo, wrongfully detained in Venezuela. Matthew Heath, wrongfully detained in Venezuela. Majid Kalmanaz, wrongfully detained in Syria. Aaron Berry, wrongfully detained in Venezuela. Paul Whelan, wrongfully detained in Russia. Shabab Dalili, wrongfully detained in Iran. Kai Lee, wrongfully detained in China. And Paul Recessivagina, wrongfully detained in Rwanda. Now I'd ask everyone to join us in 60 seconds of silence to remember these 18 Americans and the other 47 plus Americans held hostage or wrongfully detained abroad. Thank you. So I'll be brief here and then we will get to the main event. I couldn't be any prouder of the families behind me than I am right now. The path of this moment today has been a long and emotional one for our families. Hostage diplomacy is the practice of state-sponsored kidnapping for ransom. Every person whose name I just read was targeted or singled out for no other reason than their American citizenship. In at least 2 cases featured on today's mural, the detainees were targeted in part because they are veterans. The solution is to cause pain for the hostage takers and those whom they love. I'm not suggesting violating anyone's human rights. I am suggesting that if you're benefiting from proximity to a rodent regime that takes Americans hostage, that you don't get to hide your wife and kids in the West anymore. No more fancy American or European boarding schools for your kids. No more shopping trips to Paris for family members. Ultimately, our campaign seeks to urge President Biden to build off of his success with my client Trevor Reed and make use of all the tools in the toolbox to bring others home, including but not limited to prisoner trades. Doing so is not only the right thing to do, it's the right political decision. Now, I'd like to ask our artist Isaac Campbell, who's from Iowa and a Fulbright scholar, to come up and talk to us briefly about the wheat paste medium you see and also read his artist statement. Isaac.
Everyone, thank you for being here. Thank you for all of you for being here as well. Wheat pasting, whenever I give an interview, I always talk about how it takes a village to make this happen. I could stand here and list off thanks for days for the people who made this project possible. But specifically, I'd like to start and thank Amber and Netta. Made this a reality. This project started a little over 2-3 months ago, and we've been working every day to make this happen. People like the building owners and the people here in Georgetown that have helped make this a reality. But most importantly, I'd like to thank the family members who acted as volunteers. This is not a mural that I constructed myself. This is something that we constructed together. I think that's really important to understand. They put the pieces on the wall. They glued their family members to the wall. That in itself is so important in what this is about. It is not just about a mural. It's about the act of creating something together collaboratively, which is what this organization has been doing to bring these families together, to share in their grief and suffering, and to use the tools that they have available to work to bring each other's family home. Wheat pasting has always been a form of protest, whether that was small posters that were glued up as people ran away, to now something that is far grander than just a poster. It has been giving a voice to the voiceless. It's been people reclaiming public space as a place for art and a place for human stories. And that's exactly what we've done here today. As I mentioned previously, this is a collective piece of art. Everyone yesterday who contributed is an artist. I'm not the only artist here. Wheat pasting allows anyone of any ability, of any age, of any skill level, whether you've got a little one with a pair of scissors, to people of all different walks of life, contributed in building this, and they are in it, in every piece, in every spot of glue. For me, what I think of myself as a regular American citizen, and when I started talking with the members of the Free Paul Recessivagina campaign, I was introduced to what a hostage and a wrongful detainee really was. And then in talking with Netta and some of the families here, I began to understand just how huge this crisis is and how varied it is between family members. Whether your family member has been gone for a year or over 10 years, you begin to hear why they were detained. It's incredible. And so being able to provide these families with a tool, something as simple as putting some paper on a wall with glue we made over a stove, is incredibly moving and incredibly powerful. Sharing this tool with them to add to their collective toolbox, I think, is a message that everyone can begin to understand as we have a conversation as citizens of this country and as elected officials to really take a look inside and say, am I really using all the tools I have to contribute? Every person can have a piece in this conversation, whether that's over social media, whether that's at the dinner table, whether that's with a legislator or representative. You can make a difference here. We've made a difference, I think, with just some paper and some glue, and you can make a difference too. One of the most important things I'd like to share about the mural for all of you that are here in this tiny alleyway with us, and I'll read this in my artist statement as I close, is the intense juxtaposition of time. All of these images have come from family members. These are treasured artifacts. Many of these photographs are the last photographs that these families have had of their loved one before they were taken. You all have photographs at home of your loved ones, and I think it would be terrible to think that that would be the last photo you have of them. But for many of these people, that's the case. You can see time in the resolution of the pictures when you look at different members and how blurry their faces are. When you're talking about a digital camera picture from 2012 next to one from 2020. As the artist, when I was receiving these pictures, it was the most intense feeling to look at those images and put them next to one another and see the story of these lives and these families over time play out as I move the images around on the wall. It has been an honor. This is where I lose it. It's been an honor to work with every one of you, to be trusted with your family photo, to help you put the image on the wall, to complete the hat, to adjust so the smile is just right. I will always cherish this. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this and to represent all of you and your loved ones. I'm going to read the official artist statement that is on both sides of the mural. There is no front or back to this. There is no start or end. It's at both entryways to the alleyway. Look at your wrist. Do you see time? Slowly ticking, seconds march like soldiers, precise, unwavering, incessant. Look at the sky. Do you see time? Day fades to night, fades to day, an infinite ebb and flow. The rigid clock becomes a blur. Look at the wall. Do you see time? Maybe in the ink, slowly fading in the sun. Maybe in the paper, gently peeling from the wall. Maybe in the rips and holes, picked at by curious fingers of those compelled to feel more. Maybe in the pixels, juxtaposing days to decades, a valuable treasure trapped by technology. Maybe in the faces, some you remember from yesterday's news, some you have forgotten from last week's news, and most that news has forgotten altogether. Do you see time? There are currently 65 publicly recognized American citizens who are being held hostage or wrongfully detained around the world. Of those, 18 are represented on this wall. Many of the faces are from the last photographs their families took before their loved ones were taken. I see time in the eyes of their loved ones, a fiery determination that only grows by the day, a coalition built on hope and collaboration, unifying strangers from across the world by a single thread. For some, days pass waiting for the next phone call from abroad. For others, the outlook is far more uncertain. This mural, made from flour, water, and paper, is ephemeral. What will have happened for these American citizens by the time this mural fades and disappears? Do you see time? Or more importantly, do you see how much time is left? Thank you.
Thanks, Zach. Thank you.
Thanks, Isaac. And I thought that artist statement was particularly important. I thought it was a very creative. A lot of you have heard my less than creative expressions on this problem. Thought that was a unique and creative one. So thank you, Isaac. And next, I would like to introduce the Special Presidential Envoy for Ostrich Affairs, Ambassador Roger Carstens, who has one of the hardest jobs in government. And we are all grateful, all of these families, to President Biden and to Secretary Blinken for having the wisdom to keep Roger at his post when the administration changed. Roger's here today because the families wanted him to be. From the moment I met him, I knew he was, I've known that he is the right man for this job. Maybe it's that he came out of Special Forces. Maybe it's that he works around the clock. And maybe it's just because he takes shots on goal. And that's what these families are looking for. If you're looking for an example, look no further than the operation to trade Trevor Reed, which Roger and his team made look pretty easy. Roger, thank you for your friendship, and thanks for living and breathing this issue every day.
Jonathan, thank you for that kind introduction, and thank you for your courage, not only in bringing this together, but in wearing a suit on a 90-degree day. So you have my full respect. Congressman Swazi, also great to see the leadership of the Hill out here. The Hill has been a great partner in everything that we've been doing. To the members of the board who invited me, thank you. Maybe more importantly, to all the family members who, most of you, I've been in your houses, we've spent time together. I'm so grateful for a chance to come and be with you today on this important event. I see a lot of other people that maybe not be family members, but they're still a part of this team. I'm seeing Mickey Bergman trying to fight back there, and a few others. But when I'm here, we're surrounded by members of the family, and I would even say members of the media are included in that. But when I look out into the news reporters here, I see the faces of people who care about this topic, who report about it all the time, that can be counted upon not only to tell the story and raise awareness of events like this and cases like this, but also are willing to hold us accountable when the government might not be doing everything that we should be doing to get the job done. But what I can tell you is this. As evidenced by the executive order that came out yesterday and the wrongful determination, the D indicator that goes on State Department travel advisories, I can assure you that the Biden-Harris administration and Secretary Blinken, they are committed to getting these people home. They're committed to taking care of these families and building the relationships that allow us to partner to bring them home. And we're not going to relent. We're not going to stop until we achieve those objectives. But more importantly, this is not necessarily about what the administration would like to communicate to the families or to you. It's a day to celebrate these people that are on the wall. As I look down them, I've had a chance to see about 6 or 7 of them actually in their prisons. I've had a chance to, of course, talk to their families and hear their stories. And it's the kind of thing that motivates me and my staff every day to wake up hard and try to do everything we can to try to bring them back. You know, Isaac was talking about his artist statement, and he started to tear up a little bit. And I don't think you can help but be moved by the work that you've done. As you said, this is, in a way, just glue made by flour on a stove with hot water and paper. And yet there's no way you can walk down this alley and not be moved by what you're seeing and not connect with who you're looking at. And my intent is to come back here some night after everyone's gone and sit here and really walk this alley. But even as I'm here, it's an emotional connection with all these people. Frankly, the people that's my responsibility to bring home. So I'll leave that. Some of the people here have been with me a while. They know that I love to hear myself talk, but this is not my day. It's your day. It's their day. Let's celebrate this. And maybe I'll end on this by thanking the Bring Our Families Home campaign. There was a time 2 years ago where the families didn't really know each other. They didn't talk. They didn't communicate. And something's happened. Something better has happened in which the families now are talking together. They're actually reaching out. It's not unusual to have a Venezuela case pop up, and then that family talks to an Iranian case, or the families of someone that's held in China, to kind of get lessons learned, or to try to build that community, to try to build that caring family that we have. And this is an example, I think, of civil society in action. What we have behind us are families who've come together to advocate for their loved ones in a way that I think is very powerful, that's very emotional, that's very effective. And I think it's an example of how civil society in America works to get things done. I'm grateful that they pulled this together. I'm grateful for their work here today. And as I was kind of alluding to earlier, I'm grateful when they raise awareness and even and hold us accountable. It's not a bad thing to do. That's what civil society does. Thanks to the members of the press who came out to record this today. Thanks again to everyone who's here. And just know that we're not going to stop until we bring every single one of these people home. Jonathan, thank you.
Thanks, Roger. Thank you, Ambassador Carsons. Now I'd like to ask Congressman Tom Swazi to say a few words. Thank you for being here, sir. Thank you for your leadership. I'm going to read a quick little introduction here. Congressman Tom Swazi is the chair of the Congressional Uyghur Caucus and a commissioner on the Congressional Executive Commission on China. Is one of the loudest voices in Congress for human rights. Congressman has long worked to hold the Chinese Communist Party accountable for their crimes against humanity. Congressman Swazi helped usher through Congress the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act and has formed coalitions to raise awareness of Americans wrongfully and unjustly imprisoned by the CCP. And he also represents the family of Kai Li, who is a statue, whose portrait is on the other end of the mural. Congressman, thank you, sir.
So thank you, Jonathan, for pulling this together. Isaac, let's give Isaac another big thank you for his great work. He really put his heart and soul into his work. So we're very, very grateful to you. And Roger, thank you so much for back over there. And to all the families that are here. I was called by one of my constituents, Harrison Lee, about his dad, Kai Lee, to come here today. I think Harrison is watching from California. Hello, Harrison. I'm calling your mother right after this press conference. What are we doing here today? There are celebrities that we know about, high-profile names that we know about, that are being detained. And they're really important cases that we have to pay attention to. But as has been mentioned by several speakers already, there are 65 Americans that we know about that are detained throughout the world under repressive regimes where people are suffering. I don't know about you, when I was standing here before, I could smell the bakery. And it's like, wow, what a nice smell the bakery smell is. But think about, you know, we're hot and we're in this press conference and we're crowded. But think if you're in Shanghai like Kai Li is right now, in a prison with 11 people in a small cell, and it's record heat. You haven't seen your family for 6 years. Your family is freaking out every day about what's happening to you. Like all these families here worry every single day about what's going on with their mother or their father or their child, or their brother or their sister or their aunt or their uncle, worrying about what's happening to them. So the purpose of this effort is to really just try and elevate the concerns of these families about their loved ones, and to do what we can as American citizens to get our government to do the best they can to help them. And to call attention to it is what this mural's about, it's what this press conference is about, it's why different people that are here today, is to bring attention to this, so that good people like Roger can get the support they need to try and elevate this in the public consciousness, to let the family members know that you're not forgotten, to let these prisoners know, because I guarantee you, what we do here right now, even though you don't think it happens directly, the fact that we are mentioning these names, that these folks are on this mural, that gets back to them, to know that they haven't been forgotten, that we are thinking about them, that there are people that care, because their captors are saying to them every day, oh, everybody forgot about you. Nobody cares about you. Nothing could be more spirit sapping than that idea that people are forgotten. So we're here today to say we have not forgotten, that we are here together to get our president and our Secretary of State and the whole of government to work together to try and help these people that are falsely imprisoned. So I sent a letter to the president yesterday and to the Secretary of State about Kai Li. You're going to hear a statement read later by Harrison Lee about his conditions. But he's one of only 2 American hostages that the UN has opined on that he's being arbitrarily and wrongfully detained in China. And Jonathan mentioned the work that I do on China. The Chinese government, if people knew the way that they treat their people, their own people, as well as our people, we'd have a very different mindset in our relations with them. What they do to the Uyghurs, what they do to the Tibetans, what they do to the Hong Kong students, what they're doing to my constituent, Harrison Lee. So thank you to everybody for being here today. We appreciate you so much. We have not about these people that are falsely detained, and we will continue to work together to bring the whole of government to try and address this issue. And for those folks that are here today, on behalf of their families, I don't think any of you other than my constituent. I'll do everything I can to try and get other members of Congress involved, to pay attention to your cases, and to help bring attention to these cases. And Jonathan, we should work closely together to identify where each of these constituents live, who their member of Congress is, and I'll personally speak to them about getting them more involved in these cases. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Congressman. I was prepared to introduce somebody I first met when I was a 16-year-old page. Unfortunately, Congresswoman Jackson Lee is stuck in a markup and will not be able to make it here today. So next for the main event, we'll hear from the families who are here in D.C. I'm going to go a little bit out of order. Actually, we're ready. Okay. So first I'd like to introduce Roger Recessivagina, the eldest son of Paul Recessivagina, who many of you will remember as the hero of the movie Hotel Rwanda, having literally been kidnapped off a runway in Dubai, drugged, illegally rendered to Kigali, tortured, put on show trial, and remains detained there. Roger, come up and say some words.
Hi, and thank you all for being here today and supporting all our families. My father has been kidnapped. He's been in prison for, it's going to be 2 years next month. My father is 68 years old, in poor health, and we have been trying to just get him his medication, and we still can't get the medication to him after almost 2 years. And I'd like to thank everyone here, the organizers, John, Congressman, everyone who's here, who has been supporting us to get just a little bit of help we get to, so he can, get a book to read, so he can get his meals. That's always a struggle. And I'm very pleased to be here to meet other family members too who are in the same struggle, who understand what we're going through, because for the majority of people, they may not understand that it's hard just to get your family members to get a decent meal. That's something you fight for months. And the fact that we're getting support from the U.S. government, and we hope we continue to get more support and to get these families home. What I can say about my father is a great man. He fought for people during the Rwandan genocide in 1994, but because he became a government critic, he was kidnapped in 2000 and taken to Rwanda. That was just the crime, which is being a critic. And so why do we have this mural here? Just to keep his name in the news, and everyone's name in the news, and people keep talking about him. People keep getting the information, getting the word out, so that we can hopefully get our elected officials and the government to act and bring everyone home. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Roger. Next, I want to turn to Matthew Heath's family. Matthew is a decorated retired Marine who has been held in Venezuela since 2020. Today, we'll hear from Dr. Edward Rutherford, Matthew's uncle, and Miss Connie Haynes, who those of you who follow me on Twitter will know simply as Matthew Heath's mom. Just a month ago, Matthew attempted suicide in the dungeon in which he is being kept in Venezuela. He often is chained to a bed in a Venezuelan military hospital because authorities are rightly afraid that if he is returned to general population in the dungeon, he will likely attempt suicide again. Today, Matthew's mom is going to detail his torture out loud. And I encourage those of you in the media to report what Connie will disclose in all its brutality. Dr. Rutherford.
Thank you.
I'm going to start by saying, forgive me, I have a very soft voice, which is entirely unfitting for circumstances. Next, I'm going to say this. We just experienced an exceptional event. Before today, we had not talked to Matthew but 2 times in 8 weeks. If you saw us all running for the back of the alley, the reason for that, Matthew called just now. We were able to tell him what we're doing for him, for the other families, how hard we're working to try to get him home, to try to give him a bit of courage and hope. We're also grateful that Roger was here. Roger has visited Matthew in Caracas. And we were able to put Matthew on the phone with Roger today. Today marks 680 days of wrongful detention for Matthew. The conditions under which he is held are abominable. But frankly, among the families, we all share some of that in common. It's difficult. These are our family members. These are our neighbors. They're our friends, our community members. And it's important to note that this can happen to anyone who ventures outside the safe confines of the United States of America. I want to assure you that we work hard 7 days a week, 24 hours a day sometimes to return Matthew home to his family. The other families do the same. There's nothing easy about this. If you'd asked me 2 years ago if I would be standing in front of you talking about a family member who was being held as a political pawn in Venezuela, I would have said, "You're nuts." But here we are. Before I turn it over to Connie, who's the real star of the show, the mothers always are, aren't they? I'm going to leave you with 2 things. First of all, as a country, we've always claimed to value the lives of our fellow Americans. This is a good opportunity to prove that concept to be correct. And in that process, as a campaign, we're calling on the administration to use all the tools available to them to bring our loved ones home. Act with a sense of urgency. John spoke to Matthew's suicide attempt. If that isn't a compelling argument for urgency, I don't know what is. Urgency is an easy thing to do or to adopt. All it takes is a bit of courage and a willingness to pursue the right thing to do. Finally, again, none of us were prepared for this. We've learned a lot. We learned from each other. We learned from our governmental advocates, Roger. We won't go away easily. We together are an organized, experienced group of hostage families. The voice of one is easily forgotten, easily lost. The voice of many is not so easily disposed of. It is our charge, it's our obligation to our family members. It is our passion as I stand before you here today. Now let's get to the important person in the Heath family. I'm going to introduce you to Connie Haynes, Matthew's mother.
Hello. I would like to share with you all today something that I have to think about every day. This poster represents the torture my son has endured.
You can see it. Sorry.
You can pass that around.
Well, they want to take pictures of it. Go ahead.
When my son was kidnapped, he was held for 8 days. 8 long days. He was subject to suffocation. They put plastic bags over his face multiple times. He was then electrocuted multiple times. This went on for 8 days. He was electrocuted over and over. He was also beaten. Beaten for 8 days, you know. Luckily, they did not take his life. He was put in a freezer for 24 hours, and they would randomly throw cold water on him. And he had to endure this. After all the beatings, he was then taken to the prison in Venezuela, where he was under DGCIM care. From there, they were so mean to him. They randomly would put him in this box. And from what I understand, it's 2 by 2. You can barely move. It has a hole in it where they put your air through. And I learned yesterday they also would feed carbon monoxide through that to help poison you. Matthew's been beaten over there so many times that both of his hands have been broken. We're pretty sure he's living with a detached retina from the alterations over there. The torture, the physical and psychological torture does not stop. He then, as you learned, tried to commit suicide, which thank God that was unsuccessful. But while being in the hospital, he's still being tortured. He was chained to his bed for days on days. You know, anytime he would do anything that they considered a threat or whatever, they would handcuff him to his bed, and that's how he had to stay. You know, my son is not going to survive if our government does not get him home. I don't know how much more he can endure. Thank you.
Okay, so, you know, what Connie just described is characteristic of the way Americans are tortured by these rogue regimes, and it does seem that the Maduro regime in Venezuela has copied the Iranian business model for state-sponsored hostage taking. So next, I'd like to, and I know some of you have hard outs, we're almost done. I want to call on the family of Imag Sharkey to say a few words.
Hello, thank you all so much for being here. I am Imag Sharkey's youngest daughter. He has been held in Iran for the past 4.5 years. It is beyond words to see him on this mural, on this wall in DC, knowing that he raised me in this city. And we would walk past the street every few weeks, and now he's here larger than life. You get to see him how I see him with his beautiful smile. But my dad shouldn't have to be on this wall, and none of these people should have to be on this wall, because they should be home. I'll keep it short, but I just ask President Biden and the administration to do everything they can. You see 18 individuals on this wall, but I see collectively 87 years of wrongful detainment between these people. And that is a lifetime, and every day feels like a lifetime to us. You felt that 60-second moment of silence? That's how every minute passes for us, knowing that our loved ones are still being held in a foreign jail. So please keep our voices heard. Please tell your friends, tell anyone you know, this is a problem, and we need to bring them home. Not tomorrow, but today. So, thank you.
I wasn't really planning on saying anything. My name is Netta. I'm Imad's sister, his only sibling. You know, the ambulance is here because my father just fainted. You know, this is our world. The people behind us, our world is learning about what our loved ones are going through and hostages and detainment. This is not your world, and I hope it never is. But we need your help. When we talk about time, it's not an abstract concept. I mean, literally, my dad was just telling me how happy he is to be standing here and listening to everyone talk about their loved ones. And he said he felt like there was hope to bring his son home, and he just fainted and is on his way to the hospital. So time, like any second my father could pass and not see his son anymore. But I don't want to cry. What I want to say is this. Every one of you who is here, your readers, your listeners, your viewers, there is absolutely something that you can do to help us. This mural will disappear one day, and the news cycle will go on, and there'll be other stories in your newspapers and on your shows. But this doesn't go away, and we need your help. These people are losing their lives. We need you to please, whatever your political ideology is, it doesn't matter. If you are an American, please help us bring these Americans home. Let your local representatives, your senators, your congressmen and women know that you cannot stand by and wait for these Americans to be detained abroad wrongfully. Please let them know, please let President Biden know that you will all stand with him if he can bring these Americans home, and that if he makes bringing home of innocent Americans part of his legacy. Please let him know that, and that would be the biggest help you can give us as a family. Sorry for going on.
Thank you to the Sharkey family. I would note that I was going to say before, there's not a shred of evidence Imag Sharkey committed a crime of any kind. Next, I'd like to invite Tara Tabaz up here to talk about her father, Murad.
I'm the daughter of Murad Tabaz, who's wrongfully detained in Iran since January of 2018, and my mother, who's on a travel ban since the same time. The last time I saw my parents was November of 2017, so you can only imagine everything they said. Every minute feels like an eternity for us, and to just keep hearing words and no actions is the most painful thing ever. My parents are UK and US citizens, and most recently in March, they were left behind by Liz Truss and the UK government in a swamp where they should be with us now, instead of being painted on a wall. So I'm really urging everybody to do everything they can to bring them home. Every day matters for us. My father is turning 66, has a history of cancer and medical complications, so tomorrow's not promised. So to say this week, next month something will happen, nobody guaranteed us that they are going to still be there next week, next month, and to have to then be receiving all of those thoughts and prayers doesn't help us, and we want them to be taking action now. As I said, like every single day counts.
Thank you, Tara. And now I'd like to call on the Zambrano family, who has the unfortunate distinction of being the only family with 2 hostages. I apologize. Sorry. Second.
Hi, everybody. All right. I'm Alexandra Zambrano Forsyth. Lirio Zambrano down there is my dad, and my uncle is Jose Luis Zambrano right behind me. This is my sister, Gabriella, and my amazing brother-in-law, Mickey Hill, who would rather just hide in the shadows, but unfortunately, I'm putting you here. This picture of my dad down there is really iconic in so many ways of him. First of all, his signature mustache is unmistakable. I remember when he was first taken in the DGCIM, what Ms. Connie just mentioned, the same institution in Venezuela, shaved my dad's head and his mustache. That was probably one of the hardest things for me to process. I had never seen him without it. It was like a symbol of all the things that were being stripped from him and from us. Now he purposefully doesn't keep it as a sign to himself that none of that defines him. They can't take his dignity and his humanity. Also, he had a hard enough time growing it the first time, per my mom, in college, so that could be part of it too. But secondly, he has a huge thumbs up in this picture that you can't fully see. If you know my dad, you know he's the eternal optimist. It is infectious to be with him and work with him. You end up adopting these silly fist bumps and thumbs up because you know in the end, it really does help to make any situation better if you feel like you're in it together with others. Lastly, this picture of him was taken at a rodeo in Texas with a big Texas flag shirt that he was so excited to wear. My dad became a naturalized citizen in 2004, and he's always been thrilled to be part of the United States and all that it has to offer. Whether it was cheering on his alma mater, the LSU Tigers, go Tigers, in Death Valley, or the Astros in Houston, Dad has always found being a part of his community one of his passions. More personally to me though, this picture shows his kind and joyful smile. It is what I miss the most. And laughing with him and getting his perspective on the little things in life. I hope that this mural helps people see that my dad is a living, breathing human being with feelings. And that he's not just a policy issue. Thank you. And Gabby's gonna talk about my uncle.
So there's two things that I want to share with y'all and discuss, and that is the concept of fear and love. And I'm going to talk about fear first because I think that that's something that is part of every minute of my life and of everyone in my family's lives. Fear for my dad's safety, fear for my Tio Jose Luis's safety, fear for the well-being of the people that they left behind. My Tio Jose Luis loves his daughters so much, and they have had to graduate high school. They're in college right now and they're doing amazing. They're incredible and he's so proud of them. And I have to talk about fear for myself. I had a speech prepared and it was very carefully written. I am here in a desperate attempt. Am I saying the right words that the right people will hear me? Will President Biden hear what I'm saying and hear our pain? Am I doing this right? I don't know. And that plagues us every day. But I also want to talk about love. I am here because I love my dad and I love my uncle, and they love us. If we were over there, they would be right here.
Yes. Yes, they would.
This is made of love. Every single one of us is here. Time, money, tears, energy, because we love them. And I hope that you all feel love for your fellow man. Everyone here who has a child, who has a brother, who has a father, who has children, that love is here right now. And I also want to say that what our amazing artist said about time is so painful. There is fear in time. Are we moving fast enough? I think a lot of people might say no. Are we wasting time? Is my dad getting sicker by the minute? Is my uncle getting sicker by the minute? My dad is losing his vision bit by bit because he doesn't have medical treatment. Is he gonna be blind by the time I'm able to get him home? Is my uncle going to miss his 2 girls' graduations from college? He already missed high school. I have graduated medical school. I have gotten the residency of my dreams. I have had my dad's 2 grandchildren who are 3 and 1. And how much more time are all of these people going to miss with their families? So thank you for your time, and thank you for everyone who is giving some of your love and energy to supporting and advocating for our families. Thank you.
Thank you to the Zambranos. And I want to now read quickly some statements that the absent family members have written. The first one I will read is from Majid Kalmanaz's daughter. My father's name is Majid Kalmanaz. He is an award-winning psychotherapist, humanitarian, and grandfather to 13 grandchildren. He's treated the mental and emotional health of thousands of survivors across the globe. Now he needs his own government's help to fight for his freedom. It's been over 5 years since he was wrongfully detained in Syria. Over 5 years with no case, no trial, no charges against him, not even a call to his family. Syria has made it known that they are holding him hostage until they get what they want from the U.S. government. The worst of it is he's held in the most dangerous and horrific prisons in the world. Can you imagine the type of pain we're going through? It's absolutely unbearable. What will it take to bring him home? There's no time to waste. Is the U.S. government waiting for my father to die from torture to act? Free Majid Khomeini. Next, I will read a statement from Shabab Dalili's wife. His picture is on the other end. This is one of Shabab's last pictures before his unjust imprisonment. One of the last time his wife and 2 sons have the chance to be with him in person. It's been 6 very hard years. Shabab is wrongfully detained in Iran, and his family has recently decided to go public. Next, I want to read a statement by Catherine Swiden, whose son Mark has been wrongfully detained in China for 9 years. Mark was not even in China when the alleged offense occurred, and recently Catherine learned that both, not one, both of Mark's hands had been broken. Chinese authorities ought to immediately account for how that happened. Ever heard of anybody naturally breaking both hands? Thank you for the opportunity to put my son, my boy, my best friend, bigger than life on this mural for all to see. What you don't see is the suffering he's endured for 10 years in China. Thousands of American companies have gone to China to buy, set up companies, and thrive here. Mark was no different. He was going to sell flooring and fixtures. I was on the phone with him when Chinese guards burst into his room. One look at his blue U.S. passport, they detained him for questioning about his driver and translator. They never let him go. He was to be married in December of 2012. I had to tell him his fiancée married someone else. I had to tell him his beloved little dogs had passed away. I had to tell him his best friend had died. This mural is a tribute to the man who will never confess to something he didn't do. And believe me, they tried to get a confession. A man that is innocent, resilient, and through his suffering still sends letters worrying about me and his love for me. Thank you for this mural and everyone who made our loved ones come to life. None of us will ever give up. Next, I want to read a statement from Aaron Berry's wife, Melanie. Aaron Berry is a loving father and husband and has been wrongfully detained for 806 days and still counting. 806 days apart from his wife and children that mean the world to him and who miss him immensely. His children have had to grow up without his guidance, his advice, his silly jokes, his amazing cooking, and most of all, without being able to just give him a hug, knowing things will be all right. Aaron always puts the needs of others above his own. He's a loyal friend who will help you out at a moment's notice. He is driven by finding ways to improve the lives of others as well as his and his family's. Aaron is my rock, my best friend, my love. Please bring him home and make our family whole again. Next, I want to read a statement from Luke Denman's family. Luke Denman's family and friends miss him profoundly. We miss his huge bear hugs. We miss his sense of humor, his willingness to lend a hand at a moment's notice, and his spirits of adventure. Luke has always been driven to help others, whether they be friends, family members, animals, or complete strangers. He has stayed up late, talking, helped with moves, recommended therapists, given rides, and more. What you need, he's the type of person that will be there for you. He has always wanted to do his part to make the world a better place. Luke has touched so many lives and has so much more to give. Please bring him home. Before I move on, I would like to note that Bring Our Families Home campaign believes that the U.S. government should immediately designate both Luke and Aaron as wrongfully detained, and we fully support the James Foley Foundation's determination that both men meet the Levinson criteria and thus should be designated. Next, I'd like to read a very special statement from Isabella Toledo, whose father, Jorge Toledo, has been in Venezuela since 2017 as part of the Citgo Six. Many of you will recall that I released a powerful letter from Mr. Toledo to President Biden on his family's behalf last week. To the man who made me who I am, it was your tireless, It was your tireless dedication to giving us what we thought was the American dream. It's the love and gratitude you have for your granddaughters, even if all you get is a short phone call with them. It's the way you protect us from seeing your exhaustion and excruciating pain. It's the pride you have in our strength when we couldn't fathom what 5 years of dehumanization would require to survive. It's the hope that you've have in walking me down the aisle one day. The hope of getting you to give your mom one last hug. Of getting to retire with the love of your life. This is just a short list of how you've impacted our lives at the expense of your own. The only thing I could ask of you now is that you get the time to heal, rebuild, and find moments of joy with those who you have poured your heart into. We feel your spirit and love every day, and we pray for the day that you will be physically present with us. Bear with me, I'm looking at. Next, I want to read a statement from of the family of Jose Pereira, detained in Venezuela. I miss your smile when I woke up every morning. I miss sitting down to drink a cup of coffee together. The goodbye kiss before leaving the house or call simply to ask what I was doing. I would now... I'm sorry, hold on one moment. Let me just check here. I would like to read a statement from Harrison Lee, whose father, Kai Lee, has been wrongfully detained in China for more than 6 years. Kai Lee is a husband and father who immigrated to the United States from China in 1989, which is $200 and the clothes in his back in search of the American dream. After taking odd jobs in food service and insurance sales to make ends meet, he started his own modest business, which helped sell American-made solar simulators and related products abroad, doing his small part to encourage trade between China and the United States. Yet in 2016, the Chinese government chose to use Kai as a political pawn to gain leverage over the United States. He has now suffered behind bars for nearly 6 years for a crime he obviously didn't commit, confined nearly 24/7 to a tiny cell with 11 other prisoners in 100-degree heat and declining mental and physical health. His family thus calls upon President Biden to use all available tools to bring Kai home to New York. How much longer does he need to suffer? I'll also read a statement from Babak Namazi on behalf of his brother Siamak and his father Bakr. This picture was taken during one of the last holidays our family was together, and a stark reminder of all the years lost. It has been almost 7 years since we lost my dad and Siamak. I miss them so much. Now, before we move on to let me quick read also a statement from the Whelan family. Paul Whelan has been held in Russia for over 3.5 years on false charges. He spends every day of his life in a forced labor camp in a remote region of Russia, not at home with Michigan with his family and friends, working a job he loves, living in his home of 19 years. All of that is gone. We must get our loved ones home and end their needless, prolonged suffering. Before we move on, I'm also going to read a statement from Gustavo Curdenas, who was released from Venezuela in February. Is that right? February? March, I apologize. My name is Gustavo Curdenas. I was a member of Citco 6. 4 months ago, I returned to my family after 52 months wrongfully detained in Venezuela. I'm grateful to Ambassador Roger Carstens, the Special Presidential Envoy for Hostage Affairs. But I would like to send a message for President Joe Biden and Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Mr. President, Mr. Secretary, please continue your efforts to bring home my Citco colleagues. They have also already spent over 4 years and 8 months in prison in Venezuela. It is too long for them, too long for their families, and too long for America. These men, Tomeo Vidal, Jorge Toledo, Jose Pereira, Alario Zambrano, and Jose Luis Zambrano are parents, husbands, grandparents, and brothers, but above all, they are good and decent, and most importantly, innocent people. Their families are suffering just as mine did. Their families are doing extraordinary things to bring them home to the United States. It is time for this nightmare to end. I know it is possible. The fact I'm writing this statement from my home today is proof. It may not be easy, but you were not elected to do the easy things. I am proof progress can be made if we are committed to the goal. I know that Ambassador Carstens, Governor Bill Richardson, and many others took great risks to bring me home, and I know that they are continuing to take risks to bring the other Americans who are unjustly imprisoned in Venezuela and around the world home. I'm also asking President Maduro and the Venezuelan authorities to please release my colleagues, Tomeo, Jorge, Jose Alario, and Jose Luis, They are no longer young. They are over 60 years old. They don't deserve to have this part of their lives wasted in jail for no reason. There are great differences between the U.S. government and the Venezuelan government, but we must value human life. Any life is worth much more than political differences. Please find space between the differences to reach agreements that allow the release and return of my colleagues. They are waiting for your leadership to bring them back in the love of their families. Now, and I promise, I know it's hot out here, we'll get out soon. I'm looking for a page here, bear with me. Okay. Now, having read the family statements, thanks for putting up with me and the sweat that's running down my brow. It's fitting, you know, a small comparison to how uncomfortable our detainees are. Now, having read the family statements, I'd like to ask Diane Foley, the mother of Jim Foley and the founder of James Foley Foundation, which is the thought-leading NGO in the space. Many of you know Diane and know that she's been a voice of moral courage on this issue ever since her son Jim was brutally murdered by ISIS. Diane, possibly more so than anyone here today, knows the danger of government inaction. I'd like to ask Diane to say a few words.
Thank you, Jonathan. I am so brokenhearted to be here today. This shouldn't happen. We've already had 6 brave Americans who died in 2014, 2015. This is an urgent message. These families are desperate. That's why they've come together. They're desperate. They're so afraid of what is going to happen to their loved ones. It's been more than 4 years for every single one of them, living in pits, being tortured, starved, beaten, because they're Americans. Not because they've committed any crime at all, just simply because they bear an American passport. So I beg you, I thank you, media. You are the voice. We need you. We need you to speak loud as fellow Americans. These are brothers, fathers, daughters, spouses of everyday Americans. We need you, average American, good people, to know this is a nonpartisan issue. This isn't a policy. This is about our people. So I desperately call on you. I thank all of you good people for being here. I thank the great people of the SPIHA office, all the people working for this to happen. But we frankly need the president to prioritize the return of his people. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Diane. You are a bright light, and we're all so grateful to Diane for her leadership and for her courage, as well as the role the James Foley Foundation plays in these cases. Thank you all for coming today. Being one of the few civilians who gets to be a fly on the wall of the club no one wants to join has been one of the honors of my life. We have 65 plus American families like these standing behind me who are hurting. Bringing their loved ones home should be a matter of national pride, but it's not, and we aim to change that by taking actions like this one today. I want to take advantage of a captive audience and make a plea to our friends in the media. Sometimes all that protects an American being wrongfully detained abroad is a journalist with a camera, tape recorder, and notepad. You all underestimate the power of your coverage to impact these cases and bring Americans home. In closing, we have the ability to bring our people home. The only question is whether we have the political will. This campaign is inclusive and nonpartisan. We're not going away, and the families behind me want to meet their president. I want to thank everybody. If anyone has questions, I'm happy to take them now, or we can do so individually after. I am going to take advantage of the air conditioning inside after this, so feel free to find me inside. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Can we speak to Mr. Ambassador Karski?
Is he here still? Roger?
Yes, Roger, take care.
While we're waiting on that, I don't know if he's able to take any questions because I know he's got a heart out. Does anybody else have a question? We'll hold that one in abeyance for a second. Okay. Let me see. We're working on that. Ambassador Carson, BBC has a question for you. It's the woman in the pink right there.
Hello.
Ambassador, hello. Yeah. A lot of the families
So I would never want to count for the president's schedule, being a member of the State Department. So in a way, the president's schedule is the president's schedule. But what I can tell you is that if the goal is that the president knows about this, I can assure you that's done. The president knows every single case. He's interested in them. He's briefed all the time by Secretary Blinken. And Secretary Blinken, of course, is the person I report to. And I brief Secretary Blinken all the time. So there's a good chain in terms of what we do at the State Department and the connectivity at the White House to where the president knows what's going on. He knows about this mural today, and every effort that we eventually bring to conclusion, he's had his thumbprint and stamp on it. So, and I talk to the families all the time. I let them know, and I still understand from their side of the house that there's still a need and desire to connect with the president. But the one thing I can assure you is that President Biden is fully aware of these and is interested, and I'll say actually driven to get people home.
And I want to let Ambassador Carstens head out because I know he has a heart attack.
Like 6 minutes ago.
Can I ask another question?
Can we? I think we've got to get him out, but I'm happy to answer questions.
Okay. Can I at least say thank you for pulling this together?
Thank you.
Was this not an amazing event? And this did kind of to get to your question. This just increased the awareness by tenfold. This is an amazing thing, Jonathan. Thanks for all that you did to organize this wonderful event. Honored to participate, sir.
All right, guys, I'm going to enjoy some air conditioning. If people have questions, come on inside. I'll be inside. Thank you all for coming.
I'm so glad you can speak.
Bet you wishing now that you're like, I should have gone home.
I was this close.